I have random animals. Okay, some of them aren't so random. Um, a little while ago, I went on a short little day trip with my nieces and nephew, and we went to Morrill Hall in Lincoln, Nebraska, here in Lincoln, Nebraska, and we just went around and like it's a museum that I've been to dozens of times over my life. It was the museum itself was established in 1871, and it is part of the University of Nebraska State Museum. It is called Morrill Hall in honor of, I'm assuming, the gentleman that probably made like one of the first donations or so, but I don't remember his name off the top of my head. But the other fun thing about it is that it is also referred to as Mammoth Hall because right in front of it, when you walk up to it, is this giant life-sized bronze mammoth statue that it's like, I've been staring up at this thing, almost every year for like almost as long as I can remember at some point. A couple of years where I didn't go, COVID and everything, but even before then, it's like almost every year I would at least go at least once. When I was growing up, we would take, there'd be like school field trips that go to the museum, and my parents would take me there, or there would be different exhibits that would come up, and like they would be really fun to go and look at, and different things like that. uh, so it's just like I've always liked going to the museum, and it's like it's about it's 3 levels above, and then there's a basement level, so there's lots of stuff to look at and see. And sometimes they have new exhibits that come in. Sometimes it's like standard exhibits, but then there's like a newer things that get added every now and then. So that's just really fun to look through and walk around and everything. And it's parts of it is rather interactive. Um, and like the reason that there is a giant mammoth out front is because the state fossil of Nebraska is actually the mammoth. Now, I don't remember if I mentioned this in my Nebraska trip video or not, but I may have mentioned it at some other point in time. But the state fossil for Nebraska is the mammoth, and I don't know if that's because the largest mammoth fossil ever found was in Nebraska, or if it was just like one of the largest ones ever found was in Nebraska. Something along those lines, or just like they just chose the mammoth for the state fossil of Nebraska. But I just love that fact that it's just like, yeah, where my house is, maybe at one point there was a mammoth at some point. I don't know. Um, Probably not, but it's fun to think about. And actually, the mammoth that the giant bronze statue is based off of is a mammoth that is called Archie, and he is kind of the mascot for the museum. There's different things for him. He's inside the building, and I'll go over this a little bit more in detail. They have like the fossil itself, along with a mural, and I'll show those in a little bit. I took lots of pictures while we were roaming around the museum. So it's just fun. It's like it's stuff that's been there since I was a kid, so it's just like, oh yeah, I know exactly what's here and I know exactly what's there, and this hasn't changed. But then there's some newer areas in the museum, that a couple of areas that are one newer since I've been there. And as you saw on the title card, I also brought Barry with me when we went on the trip. Fix it. Very plushy. My nephew really likes helping me take pictures with Barry. Put Barry over here. Here we go. My nephew really likes helping me take pictures with Barry, and he was fine with like helping carry Barry around and everything like that. And I did not make him do this. For the record, my nephew is 12. Will be 12. So, I was like, it's not like he's like a little kid or anything like that. He likes carrying Barry around and likes helping me take pictures and everything. He liked doing that on the trip that we took across the state, so that was nice too. The girls like helping with that as well, but they were a little bit more interested in like their phones at times. But we were just like, okay, pay attention to the historical things around you. A couple of other quick facts about Morrill Hall before I go into the museum itself or what's inside of it. The museum itself is accredited by the American Alliance of Museums and is a proud Smithsonian affiliate. And they have lots of different research collections that include anthropology, botany, entomology, geology, invertebrate, paleontology, parasitology, vertebrate, paleontology, and zoology. So there's lots of different things, like the Nebraska Natural History Museum type of thing. We do have another history museum in Nebraska here in Lincoln that deals a little bit more with like the human history and stuff like that. But there are parts of that in Morrill Hall as well, and I think the museums kind of work together at times. But I could be wrong there. Literally, as I said, the first thing that you see when you walk up to the museum is this giant freaking bronze statue of a mammoth. And it's life-size, it's huge, and it's just kind of this thing where it's just like tradition of like, I'm gonna touch the foot. So, you know, it's just, you know, that's just fun. One of the first things that you see when you walk into the museum, obviously besides the front desk, is this giant, it's literally like this giant first room is just full of mammoth fossils, and the wall of the back is like this mural of like these mammoths that are walking, and there's this really big one up front, and that one's kind of supposed to be Archie. And then as you look around the room, it's like there's one specifically very large mammoth fossil that is Archie. And I took a picture of Barry next to Archie. So Barry's a little tiny thing on the bottom of the thing compared to the giant freaking mammoth. So if you want a comparison to how big Barry would be next to Jack in One Piece, that would be the comparison that you would get. And you know, I'm going to point out different like things that would be interesting for like One Piece or something like that while we're going through this. You know, you look through that, there's and there's more than just one different type of mammoth or mastodon. There's a bunch of different other variations that have been discovered, not just here in Nebraska, but other places around the world. There's ones that had like, you know, more shovel type, you know, jaws and different things like that for their tusks. There's a bunch of different variations. You can just look them up, and they're very interesting to see in regards to some of the different types of mammoths and stuff like that that once roamed the earth long ago. And also in there for like size comparisons, there's also 2 taxidermied elephants. I do not remember if one is specifically an African elephant and the other one is like specifically an Asian elephant. I don't remember off the top of my head, but they have the elephants. And then as you like move through the other rooms, because like the rooms kind of branch off of each other as you go through, and you can like wander around, you know, one floor and then go up to the next floor and up to the next floor and everything. There are lots of other fossils, of course, throughout the building. One of the areas goes a little bit more into kind of like, you know, dinosaur history and stuff like that. Now, to be honest, there weren't that many dinosaurs that were in Nebraska, because during that time frame, Nebraska was underwater. Yeah. During the time frame when dinosaurs roamed the earth, for a large amount of that, Nebraska was underwater. So we don't really have a huge amount of dinosaurs, but we did have a lot of different types of like the sea dinosaurs, you know, those types of things, sea creatures and stuff like that. Things that would be considered sea monsters to this day. And I wouldn't blame them. And one of the rooms has, I mean, like we do have some dinosaur fossils there. Like I do believe we have like a T-Rex skull there. And then we do also have, I don't think it's a Triceratops, but I think it's like something that's like similar to a Triceratops that we have there. Where there's like a skeleton of that there. And a few other like bits and bobs about that, and a few other types of like dinosaurs that either would have like been in like the general area based on like different time frames throughout the you know, Cretaceous and Jurassic and, you know, that type of stuff. Throughout the different eras of dinosaurs, that, you know, sometimes there could have been a few other areas where like, yeah, they were in the area, you know, within the area of Nebraska or just like nearby areas. But like there's lots of different fossils, of course. Now, I don't believe we had pterodactyls in Nebraska, but we did have some other you know, flying dinosaurs that probably ended up, or flying reptiles that ended up in the area at times. So, you know, not quite king, but, you know, still, you know, kind of cool. That would be like, I don't want to see that thing flying anywhere near me, um, type of thing. Um, and then, of course, we also had like rather extremely large ancient fish, of course, that were in the area. There were mosasaurs, of course, that were within this area. That would be an interesting thing to have in one piece, like the uh, the dinosaur fruit model. You know, mosasaur. It's like, well, the hybrid form would probably be pretty useful, and at the very least, if you're, you know, in the full form, you'd be able to breathe underwater, but you'd also sink like a rock, sink like an anchor, literally. So maybe not the best one. Um, you know, so we had mosasaurs, and there's a few other things. There's part of it also has like this in the bottom of one of the rooms, in the floor of one of the rooms, as you walk in, there is literally like this giant like head and then long neck in the floor that goes like all the way through the room. And I don't remember if that's supposed to be from a plesiosaur or if that's just from like some other one. But like there's also murals around the room that show um, different aspects of like what it probably looked like under the ocean and everything at this time, of course. And one of the things that is kind of like adjacent to this is that lots of the fossils that you will find in Nebraska in regards to like that time frame for like the dinosaur time frames are, as I mentioned, because Nebraska was underwater, are lots of different sea creature type fossils. So there's lots of I was about to say nautilus shells, but it's like something along those lines. And one of the things that my dad and I used to do was we used to go fossil hunting, and we used to go on like different, you know, different trips with like things that were, you know, like parts of the Nebraska Wildlife Commission, that we would get to go to different areas and do like fossil hunting and everything like that. And I think I still have some of the fossils somewhere. But like, you know, it's like, you know, find the little shells that are like within the rocks and everything like that. So those are fun. Also, they have like a lot of like fossilized shark teeth at the museum because, you know, during that time frame there would have been a lot of sharks within the area. And you know, sharks don't usually leave behind skeletons because they're mostly cartilage, but the teeth get left behind. So we have like some idea of that. Um, and you know, there's just like other areas that kind of go through like the natural progression of like, you know, the evolution of different species, in regards to it going from like, you know, pre-Cretaceous, you know, pre the dinosaurs, you know, where it's like bigger reptiles and everything, like this giant, you know, frog here, or amphibian, not quite a frog. There's also this like a giant piece of like a petrified wood that's like petrified tree rings that my, you know, nephew got a picture of Barry on. Um, And then there's also just other like random other fossils throughout the museum as you walk around. I do not 100% know if all of these are actually like animals that are like from Nebraska itself, or if they're just more animals that happen to just be different fossils that the museum has gotten their hands on over the years. But a lot of them are different, like mammals. So there is one that is, this one here is it's called an Irish deer, and I don't know a whole lot about it, but it kind of looks kind of cool, and it would be kind of interesting to see. It's like at the very least, if that was like a devil fruit, the, you know, the antlers and everything that the person would have would be pretty dang good in battle, particularly if you could find a way to like work it with like Chopper's rumble balls. That would be kind of fun. And then, of course, we have a Sabertooth Tiger. There'll be another little bit more about a Sabertooth Tiger a little bit later on. I also have a stuffed Sabertooth Tiger over here that I got on the Nebraska trip. I also have my book in the background that's about prehistoric mammals that I want to do a video with at some point, but I don't know when yet. Maybe I can work that into this one, because I'm going to do several different videos where I talk about like the just like quick go through all the different zone type devil fruits for like all the different like regular animal zones, and then ones about the ancient zones, and then one about the mythical zones, and then one also about the different smile users, the gifters. So I might be able to work that kind of into one of those devil fruit videos for that. For like zone devil fruits. But you know, so the, you know, Sabertooth Tiger, and then there's also a this other thing is it's a giant ancient like armadillo, like fossilized giant armadillo that is pretty cool looking. Like that thing would have pretty high defense. I'd say that it'd be a pretty good thing in regards to at least like taking attacks, and at the very least, depending on stuff, you could always use it as like, I don't know, a giant cannonball and like throw it at the enemy or something. That'd be good. Giant cannonball that can like sentiently like roll around and like destroy a bunch of the enemy. Yeah. And then we also have a giant sloth, fossilized giant sloth, which, considering, sloths can be pretty scary in this regard when they're this large. I mean, like, sloths in general, it's like, they're not scary because you can outrun them, but like, if they get a hold of you, they will slice you up if you make them angry. Yeah, so that's fun. And then in a different area of the museum, this exhibit that I'm going to go through now is a little bit newer. It's not as new as one of the other exhibits, but it's a little bit newer. As in, like, it wasn't there when I was a kid. It came up within, like, the last 10 years. That is more like bizarre type creatures that have evolved over time, or like bizarre fossils that they found. And I'm just going to go through a couple of them. So there is a section where they talk about like different like triceratop like related family members. So of course we have those ones that are like the armored type dinosaurs. In regards to that, there's also like this ancient or I don't know if it's a prehistoric frog, but it's like a giant frog toad type thing that, Barry wanted to get a picture with. And then, of course, because, just like flying reptiles or flying dinosaurs in and of themselves are rather interesting, we, of course, have a little bit more of a pterodactyl looking thing that has a gnarly looking beak, in all honesty. And then just a little bit more of like the pterodactyl looking family. And then I found something that, of course, because, teching and Kaido was a duck and everything, and I think I found something that would work for a duck that Kaido could be. So this is basically a thing that's been called a murder duck or a demon duck or whatever you want to refer to it as. It is a giant prehistoric bird that did used to roam within the Great Plains, and its basic way of hunting was run really fast, run up behind the thing it was fighting, chasing, and then like jab its beak into their neck to like, kill it and knock it out and then kill it. So yeah, I found a much more duck appropriate one. I don't know if this would qualify as like a Tori no Mi ancient zone model, whatever type of duck this was, or whatever type of bird this was. But nowadays, like the closest equivalent that they have to it nowadays is like the cassowaries that are in Australia are about the closest thing to like kind of how this thing used to be in regards to the way that it used to hunt and how fast it was. I mean, like, ostriches and emus and stuff like that are very fast. And like, yeah, their beaks are strong, but the cassowary actually have like the crest on their head that they can use to like jab things. I know we at least used to have like an ostrich or an emu or something like that at the Lincoln Zoo. I don't know if Omaha still has them. They might, but I don't think either of them have ever had a cassowary. Those are, I think, a little bit more. Well, I know that they're from Australia. I know that much, but I don't know if any of the zoos around me specifically have ever had a cassowary. Which, if they haven't, that's fine. But yeah, so lots of fun things there in regards to a giant murderous, duck dinosaur thing. And then, of course, as you go through the museum, there's other areas. One of the things that I always like are the like they have like a whole section that basically shows like the evolution of like how a horse evolved and like how it was like the horses like originally started as like really tiny little like three-toed horses, and then as they got bigger and bigger and bigger and eventually like their hooves all fused into like one toe, like what we have now, like when you see a horse now. Eventually that's of course where it ended up, but it slowly got bigger and bigger over time, and like I believe it was they actually evolved like here in North America and then like spread back over into like Asia and Europe via like that continental like bridge type thing that they had at one point because of like glaciers and everything. And like spread back into there, and then that's where they ended up being like more domesticated and everything, and turned into like lots of bred and domesticated into a lot of the different species that we're familiar with now. But after like the land bridge like collapsed or so, then here in North America, like the horses ended up like dying out. They survived for a while, but they ended up dying out, and then it was only like in the 1600s that they ended up getting like reintroduced into kind of into the environment. And I know that like a lot of the times when it comes to like different animals that get like, you know, reintroduced or get brought into different environments, there's, you know, the invasive species and everything like that, of course, that'll happen. And like a lot of the things like technically like cats and dogs and you know, different types of mice and other rodents are like invasive species, of course. But I don't know if and like invasive species, of course, tend to cause lots of different like problems in regards to the environment they cause. They mess with the food chain. They eat food that's supposed to be eaten by other animals, and then like the other animals end up dying, unfortunately, in the process because you know their food gets eaten, and they can't you know they can't compete as easily with these you know other animals. But I don't know if when horses like got reintroduced into like the food chain here in North America, and then you know spreading into South America. I do not know if they ended up having like as averse of an effect, as bad of an effect as like other species when they got introduced. But I'm not sure, but some kind of like because like they kind of like evolved into the you know like originally evolved here, and then like they moved, and like I don't know exactly. Um, but I know that that's just something that happened in regards to that. Like I've always loved horses. I just love horses. I think they're great. I've ridden horses a couple of times. And then we move on to, I think this is on the very top floor of the museum at the moment. And it's an exhibit that I don't know how long it's been up, but it was not up the last time that I was at the museum. They may have been working on it the last time I was at the museum, but it wasn't up then. And this is more of a exhibit that is a lot more about Nebraska. Not that we don't have like other exhibits in the museum that aren't just about Nebraska in and of itself, but this is a little bit more about like the a little bit more in depth about different nature and wildlife that are currently in Nebraska, but also were in Nebraska at one point. And of course, one of those creatures and kind of like the mascot that they have for the exhibit is, of course, the Sabertooth Cat. So, of course, we got some pictures of those and one with Barry in it. One of the things they also have is off to the side, they have like it's the skull of like the cat, and it's like you know got the teeth and everything. Like you can like crank this thing and it'll like you know open and close the jaws, so you can see how the jaws would open and close on it. Like it was fun watching kids like spin it. And one of the other things that they had is, and I mentioned this before, one of the animals that is very, very, very prevalent in Nebraska, of course, is of course the bison. And I've talked about them in other videos at times. Got a bunch of pictures of bison when we were on our Nebraska trip. But one of the things is bison, of course, are kind of a, you know, evolved from another type of bison. And this is something I did not know. I may have like known part of this at some point, but I didn't know a huge amount about this part. But one of the kind of ancestors of the bison is this thing. Which is a freaking huge looking bison, bull, longhorn type thing that was very big to look at. And I'm like, okay, yeah, no, I don't want to make that thing angry. Nope, 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 nope. Don't want to make that thing angry. It's I was about to say it's antlers. So its horns look like swords. Its horns look like spears that can very much cause damage to me. And I don't want that. So we have this thing, and I cannot remember the exact name for it, but I want to say it was something along the lines of Lanatotoros or something like that. It had Taurus in the name. I don't remember exactly, but it was like this was like one of the biggest forms that like bison ever got to, and then there was like a smaller middle form, and then there was like the form that we kind of see now when you picture a bison or a buffalo, whichever one you want to refer to it as. And you know, so it's like these things used to roam across Nebraska, and like they had a skull of the thing there, and it was just like, yeah, no, I don't want to make that thing angry. It reminded me of like you take a bison, like if you took a bison and you took like a longhorn cow, which I've seen before. You know, there's longhorn cows in different parts of Nebraska and such like that. They're just basically cows that have like extremely long horns on the side of their head, or like they curve up a lot more. And it basically looked like you bred those and then you put it on steroids. And I'm just like, yeah, no, I don't want to deal with that. Then like you roam around the other area in this top floor and has more like some of the more natural wildlife and everything like that. Little interactive things for the kids. So you can like see like how the environment affects itself and everything. And then they have this other room that had like a whole bunch of like insects type stuff in it, which I don't mind insects. There are certain insects that I don't like, and those basically equate down to hornets, wasps, and spiders. And like, so they had like this wall that was full of like all these different, or this section that was full of like all these different bugs, and like these ones here are all interesting. Like there's butterflies and moths and like different beetles and everything like that. And like those ones I like. One devil fruit I wouldn't mind if Oda did was like if he came up with like a butterfly no mi, it would be like the Mushi Mushi no Mi model butterfly, or whatever the butterfly equivalent is in Japanese. That would be a fun devil fruit to have, because, and this is just off the cuff thing. It was just, well, not off the cuff because I thought about it before. But like if you like have that devil fruit, then you can like, you know, if you get really good with armament hockey, you can like armament hockey up the wings and like slash people with the wings. That would be fun. That'd be a good way of using that type of a devil fruit. So they have that, and like I was looking through like these different drawers that have like all these other different like insects in them, and they're all like preserved insects, and like I'm looking through them, and like, you know, it says what they are kind of on the outside of the drawer, but I'm like looking through it, and I get to one and I pull it part way out and I see spider legs, and I'm like, nope. I'm like, close that drawer. I am not looking in that drawer. And like that room had like a bunch of other like parasite type things in it, and I'm just like, nope. I'm gonna go down the hallway and sit by the giant cow if you need me. While my nieces and nephew like look in there, so I'm like, nope, leaving. So I went and did that, and like they were in there for a while, and at one point I'm just like, okay, come on guys, it's time to go. Time to move on to the next section. Which then we go up to, or went down to the next floor, and like this floor has stuff on it that hasn't really changed much since I was a kid. And this section has a lot more of, they have like lots of different like rocks in this section, and minerals and different things like that. There's these two giant amethyst like geode type things that they have, and amethysts are one of my favorite stones. I just always think I love purple, and like amethysts I always thought were so beautiful. And so, you know, there's two giant amethyst things that are like my height, and I'm just like, I would love to have those, but I have no place to put them nor the money to buy them. And then they have like these different cases all over the place that are filled with these other gemstones and minerals, and like different, you know, explanations of like how they work, and like different things like that, or, you know, explanations up to like how they're made and everything. Looked all over, couldn't find anything that talked about how the poneglyphs are made. No, couldn't find anything about that. And the kids looked around too, and they didn't see anything. Oh well. And then of course this is where we have a little bit more of our dinosaur section. There is, I think this is supposed to be a T-Rex skeleton if I remember correctly, but I could be wrong. I don't think it's an Allosaurus though, so I don't quite think it's what Drake is, but I could be wrong on that too. But they do have like the femur of this thing, and you know, like it's taller than I am, so you know, picture of me with the femur. And buried with the femur. As I got a picture of my nephew with the femur, but again, not showing you my nieces and nephews' faces. And then there's also a Stegosaurus in this area as well, so you know, you can see that there. Don't know if they're ever going to have any Stegosaurus in One Piece in regards to actually being, you know, someone's devil fruit, but that would be interesting. I mean, like, we saw a lot of the ancient zones and everything like that because of Kaido's crew, and the of course the Toby Ropo, but we'll see what else happens with that. And then also on this floor, there is a section where they go a little bit more into like the history of weapons, not just in Nebraska, but just like the history of like weapons in general. So there's lots of different guns and rifles and swords and bows and arrows and like spears and clubs and everything like that. And like there's this really pretty dagger that I just like, really pretty. I have no idea how useful it would be, but it's very pretty. And of course, as I said, there's like lots of different things. So it's like all these different like guns and rifles and bows and arrows. Like I think Usopp would have like fun with those. And of course, all the swords. You know, Zoro, I wish to see the swords. Tashigi, I wish to see the swords. You know, that'd be fun. Knowing Zoro, he tried to like fight with one of them and be like, put it back. You know. You know, they're just kind of interesting. Like they also have like a Native American exhibit, of course, within the area that talks about the different tribes that were not just within like Nebraska itself, but like the within the United States, of course, as a whole. Omaha in Nebraska is named after the Omaha tribe. There's also the Ogallala tribe. I believe that is also what Ogallala, Nebraska is named after. And there's a few other, of course, tribes that are, of course, very prominent within Nebraska itself. Nebraska itself, as I mentioned before, translates to, it's like flat land or like flat river or something like that, because like the Platte River that runs through Nebraska, Platte is like is flat, so it's like the flat river because like it doesn't really go up or down. And then one of the other exhibits that's a little bit newer is pictures of different wildlife species from Nebraska, and it's not just you know, it's not just the pretty things. There's also, you know, spiders and other, you know, there's like ants and frogs and bunch of other different, you know, tons of other different insects that they show there. Like you can like wave your hand in front of some of them and it makes the noise. It was fun making my niece jump. And then, of course, one of the other things is, of course, it also goes into different plant species that are within Nebraska. And one of those things is, of course, sunflowers are a rather prominent thing. And they had this giant flower type thing there. There was like this sculpture that was really pretty. And, you know, like I got a picture of like me and Barry with the flowers and such. So they're really pretty. And then we move into a section that is on the bottom floor. They have a section that is a little bit more, there is an area that is about like wildlife that is like specifically from Nebraska. As you like roam through that area, there's stuff about bison and the prairie lands and different types of birds and other animals that are native to Nebraska. But then there's also like this section that is about like Darwin, as in Charles Darwin. And within that area, they do also have, they have a capybara. That is a taxidermy capybara. They have a taxidermied flamingo. They also have a taxidermy bat and lots of other smaller things. They also have a section that is full of different wildlife that is from Africa. So it's like taxidermy. There's a leopard and a cheetah. There's, you know, lions. There are they don't have any giraffes because I don't think any of the, if they had a giraffe, it would have to be up like within the elephant area because like no other places are like tall enough within the museum for that. But you know, they have like, I think they have some ostriches, they have a caribou, there's several other things. And of course, there's also a section within the museum that is like a kids playroom section. And I swear to God, there are toys in that section that have not changed since I was a kid. Because they have like, you know, plastic dinosaur toys that are, you know, I mean, it's like they're good quality considering that they've held up for like almost, you know, over 30 years, considering these are toys that were there when I was a kid. You know, that, you know, the kids today still play with and everything. So they've held up well and don't really have a whole lot broken off of them. Colors are a little faded and chipped, but still. And like, you know, there's like, you know, books that you can read in the area. There's different activities for like the parents can like put the kids in the room and like let the kids have some fun in there. There's like little fossil dig areas, of course, that you can, you know, like let the kids like dig around and like find fossils within like the fake soil and everything. So like, you know, we had fun, like just, you know, we just kind of like sat in the room for a little while and like rested there while like while my nephew went and, dug, played in the area because he likes playing with that stuff and everything. And he was like playing with some of the other kids that were there. Like, just took a little bit of time to like sit and rest our feet before we, moved on. And out in front of the area, they have this taxidermy crocodile. And the crocodile got a hold of Barry, so I had to try to get him away from Barry, but he was fine. And then there's also there's like newer toys in the room too, of course, in the play area for the kids. There's newer toys there as well, and like one of them are these like little like things that the kids can sit on that look like insects. There's a ladybug one, and then there's a bee one, and Barry wanted to ride the bee, so. And then like as you go through the museum, of course, there's other things that are just like fun to look at. Interactive things that you can look at, of course. The one problem was that the gift shop wasn't open, and I was just like, but I wanted to get postcards because I haven't been here for a while. But one of the other things that they have in the museum that's in like the bizarre evolution area, bizarre animal area, is also a shark that literally had like a saw tooth, like it looks like a circular saw for like a jaw. And like they found like a fossilized version of this, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to see that thing anywhere near me. And then the other thing was and they don't have this at the museum anymore, but they did used to have a basically so the I think it's raining outside right now. One of the largest snakes to ever exist. I think it is the largest snake to ever exist. Is the it's like the terror boa, or the it's like a giant freaking anaconda that like is like the size of a bus, and it's just like, oh god, no. Yep, it's raining. Thankfully I'm almost finished, so I shouldn't have to worry about that affecting the noise, but. Morrill Hall is just one of the fun things to do around Nebraska, around Lincoln itself. Not that there are other museums and stuff like that within Lincoln that are, there's like art museums and some other, history museums around Lincoln that are pretty interesting to go to as well. So, that's what I have here. I thank you very much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed the video and me finding another reason to just talk about my state and how much I love it. So thank you very much, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye. Sparking people's interest in the natural world and preserving it for future generations.